You are tuned in to All Consuming Filming, the Now or Never show. My pleasure to announce Lily Hatchett, who is a full-time performance artist, musician, photographer, and independent filmmaker with a substantial amount of work. Welcome, Lily.
Hey, hi. So I'm hiding here in the grotto because this is what we like to do. We like to hide in our art and vanish and disappear if at all possible.
I love that dog there. You have an interesting background in an education. Tell me about how you decided on a full-time artistic career.
Well, here's the thing. I always like to entertain people, so that's what I do. And then I thought, well, it's not necessarily a good way to make a living, but I try to do at least one performance per year back when I was a kid, like a full-on production. And now that I continue doing that, and I have now this like most ridiculous show because, you know, we like being ridiculous. I'd like to show you a little bit more of what's going on here. So I have, I started this whole thing when I was a kid, and I was going to a lot of ballet and opera and theater and stuff with my family. And the part I liked the best were the shadows, like when a ballerina could like throw out like 5 shadows, each one a different color. That's what I liked. Okay, so that was like my inspiration, so to speak. So then I started doing these like in like boxes. I would create these like paper events with like theatrical events. And as you can see, I'm still doing that, but it's so much bigger now. And that's kind of how the whole thing started. And then you know, I would do like a couple of performances a year. I would get grants and we'd have like a lot of fun. But you know, I really realized that this is what I really wanted to do full time, even though it's a really ridiculous way to make a living. You know, you just can't do that. And so why am I doing that? Because I like it. I decided to make stuff that I've never seen anybody else do before. So this is as close as I've come to that so far, because I decided if I can create a whole entire giant stage production by myself, then hey, head of the game there, right? So I thought, well, since I've always been a bit of a dog lover, I kind of thought that maybe all my performers needed to be dogs, and yes, they are. So sometimes I'll have up to like 5 or 6 dogs in the show, and the deal here is that the dogs, the performers become a sculpture, just like these things over here. These are all sculptures. They're freestanding individual pieces that you get to play with when you're on stage, because they're performers as well, and they're quite active, and you can activate them even more by moving them around. So the sculpture becomes a performer, and the performer becomes a sculpture. And as you can see, the subject matter is really pretty much not there. It's more like an abstract sculptural live ridiculousness thing that you know, I learned from my dogs how to tear paper. So, you know, God bless them. You know, if they know how to make a mess with paper, so do I. Haha.
Tell
So
me about this is very interesting to me, and I've seen you perform, Lily, before, and some people don't know about how you construct that paper and give an artistic view. Tell me about some of your live performances like Paper Grotto, and what was it like performing in New Orleans and New York with paper sculptures?
well, we took the objective was like in New Orleans that they really wanted you to take your whole set down at the end of each. We did 5 shows, and supposedly at the end of each show we were supposed to take the whole set down. So the objective was to first of all fit it in a van. Second of all, be able to put it up and take it down in like 15 minutes. Okay, so that was that was a bit of a challenge, but I worked it out. It's an ever evolving process for how to make this come out of nothing, being very small, and then all of a sudden there it is and it's huge. And as far as theatrics go, that's a really cool challenge. So, and lightweight, I have a really bad back, so I don't want to carry anything heavy, but I want it to be large and in charge, so this is how this whole thing evolved. And when I applied for the New Orleans Fringe Festival, I talked about the deliciousness of the performance, not like relating it to food rather than to art. Because and anyway, so that was pretty cool. That worked out really well. And then the stuff that continued after that was 3 years at the Shangri-La. It was like a theater in residence gig, and oh God, been doing it ever since. COVID kind of put a little break on that.
Absolutely. And it must take a long time to get your stage perfect. Can you tell us about how many hours does it take to set something up to perform?
Well, usually it takes, aside from transportation, it takes about, maybe we can do it. It depends on how many people help. We can do it in an hour or less to set it up, and then take it down, similarly. And that's the whole objective, is to make it like quick and easy. As far as sheer perfection, how could you not see this? How could you not have sheer perfection in wrinkled, torn paper that's like stuck to some stuff? That's sheer perfection, right?
Yes, and I don't understand how you wouldn't rip that paper, and what goes into making that kind of a stage in the set and transferring it over to a different state. How you
There's
can't
there's
damage it.
there's a secret packing process, that's for sure. And some of these pieces that you see back here, some of them have been in my shows for 10 years. And some paper falls off and then it's different. And there's some paper that stays on and then things get added to it. And then there's like the portable part of the sculptures, which is where you go, like you can sit under this thing and just move it very little, because the whole objective is to do very little movement. And then the artist just vanishes.
Do you give the performances yourself, or do you train a staff to give the performances when you travel all around the country?
Well, when we've been doing it around here and in New Orleans, I took my people with me, and I have like 5 top dogs that perform with me, and there are other places where I will give a workshop to bring like local people up to speed, and like usually like theater people and dancers like to be part of this. So a little workshop. It's pretty easy on the training. Really easy on the training, like let's not tell people how easy it is, because they'll want to do it themselves.
What stories are you telling your audience, and do you have to adapt your show to the locations you perform in? You mentioned food. in New
Well,
Orleans?
you know, adapting it in like physical terms, like, you know, like I've done performances that involved one desk in a corner. And so we were sliding all over the desk with the paper, and it was pretty much fun in a really tiny space. And then I've done it on like a full-size theatrical stage. So there's always an adaptation depending on the venue. So that's for sure. That's part of the whole process, is making it fun and easy, and it looks hard, doesn't it?
You have plenty of publications. Tell me about what topics are most interesting to you, and would you stage them in your shows?
Here's what I'm looking forward to doing next with this show, is creating kind of like a venue, a showcase for people to sit here and tell stories or sing songs, you know, create their own moment inside the paper grotto. Because, you know, when you once you go to the grotto, you will not want to come back. And then you can sit here and you're almost like in hiding, and you can tell your truths, and nobody needs to know who it is, or they want to know, maybe you'll tell. So so that's why I'm gonna start gathering like various people that are gifted and storytellers, and you know, they can just make funny faces. That would work too. Oh,
When
you know, strangely enough, people that have never had an avant-garde experience like this, they get it. People get it. There's just, it's not that hard, you know. The people get it. Kids have walked onto my into my performance and not refused to leave, you know, because they get it. And it's just kind of a fun thing to watch, you know. It, you don't have to put any more meaning into it than you want to, or none at all if you don't want it, because it's just, this is what it is. It's just ridiculous art and paper, and you can make it move, and you can do this. Ideally, you want to do this for like, you know, a week at a time. You know, have it an ongoing thing on a stage where it's like people can walk on and off, but it's always happening. You know, I think that'd be really cool.
Well, I'm going to take a short break, but when we come back, I'm going to ask Lily, maybe you'll be so gracious to show us a little bit of a demonstration. Hold that thought. Welcome back to the Now or Never show, and I am just hanging with a great friend who's been an artist since a child, Lily Hatchett. Appreciate having Lily Hatchett right now on the show. Lily, can you just show us some of your costuming? What do you have there?
Well, what I have are like props that really sometimes work out to be just like critters that are part of the show. And they are strictly handheld. They only become puppets in your imagination, you know? So, but the main characters that I have are my paper dogs. Everybody, of course, is dressed in white. And therefore we can kind of vanish in the set. You see, but I don't know if you see the dog head.
Yes, you almost disappear into the scene, and we just
That's the whole
see
idea, is
a
to.
bunch of dogs. And your technique is very interesting. I How long would it take to construct your set? Did this take years to develop your props, or has it happened overnight? How long does it take to develop your props?
Well, some of these things just happen overnight because suddenly I need them for a show. It's like, you get that last minute inspiration and you need to have that. So one time when I did this fashion show that you can see in Paper Grotto 101, in the video, there's two fashion shows. You'll see that one of them, people are wearing like paper hats. I realized I had all this fashion and beautiful models, but they needed paper hats like right away. So the morning of the show, I created about 20 paper hats. So that was fun. I'm glad I did it. They were very effective. The dog heads take a little longer because they're kind of made to fit the person that's wearing them. And everything else, the sets, and this thing really looks like a giant robot, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
The sets become their own thing, and the sets are constantly evolving because, it's just it's an ongoing process because it is a cave of paper. So
What goes into, if someone books you a show, let's say I wanted an all-day show in Chicago and you had to travel from where you're at and your location in Florida, in Southwest Florida, what goes into preparing for a show and getting to the scene?
well, the first thing you need to know is what kind of a space it is. The size of the space will determine what gets packed in the truck and or the van in my case, because I can carry my entire giant show in a minivan because it's paper. And it can crush and nobody will even notice that it was crushed. So yeah, and no, I mean then you have to count backwards and do like, how much it would cost to transport, how much it would cost to, place to stay, a setup time for, how long the show is gonna go. And then if I was gonna go to a different town, what I would do is recruit local people to be in the show rather than transport performances. Because I can whip performers into shape in like one or two workshops. And the workshops themselves become like performances in themselves. So I've done workshops with kids, and the kids had so much fun that the parents signed up for me to do a workshop with the parents too. So, it's kind of exponential because, it's a very unusual kind of fun. It's, you don't get it anywhere but here in the grotto.
And do you write your own stories each show, or do you replay the same stories? What goes into developing the
This is
script?
strictly Buto. Buto is a kind of art form that has to do with creating a personal performance that may or may not even have an audience. If you go to my indie film and artreporter.com and scroll down, you'll see a little story about what Buto actually is and how it exists and why it's what I find inspiring because it's really it works off your imagination. It forces you to be a performer without an audience, maybe a performer within yourself, where you kind of take yourself out of your own reality and put yourself in a performance reality. So originally, Buto art was done in caves, and sometimes, you know, people were naked, just painted like, you know, white paint, I mean, body, you know, makeup. And so that's, it's like a 60s thing. It's an offshoot of the theater of the absurd and theater, you know, all these avant-garde theaters that were evolving in the 60s. So Buto is kind of like, I think, the quintessential, because it really, it'll put anybody you want into a place where they can become a performer. So that makes it fun. And to answer your other question, how did this whole thing start? This whole thing started as a giant single sheet of paper, leaning up into a corner, and then
Very
I projected
interesting.
on it, and I haven't looked back since, because it was like, wow, this is really cool. I want to do this now. How else can I do it? You know, it's like lots of stuff going on there. So anyway, that's what
It's
you got. And
amazing that you could come up with such an amazing idea out of paper and make it and transform it into a show and go around to New York and New Orleans and make this a show. Is art a therapeutic outlet, and when do you stop the hustle?
I think that I don't know if it's therapeutic, but I'll tell you one thing. I was working in international trade. So I was, you know, wrangling shiploads of international goods, and taking care of, like, you know, the whole business of shipping large amounts of cargo transoceanic.
Wow.
And at one point I realized, oh man, this is like, this sucks. You know, I really want to be doing something else. And I felt like it would be
Yeah.
it would be just, if you can do something like this and you don't do it, then it's
Yeah.
like you're bad, you know. You're bad. So that's why I decided to just kind of like drop out of the international trade business.
Wow.
And next thing I did was get some little, like, low paying jobs in independent film. And then people started hiring me to shoot videos for them. And then I got hired to be a photographer. I worked with a bunch of, like, really, like, blue chip bands. And throughout all that, even though, you know, working in rock and roll, traveling in a tour bus is a far cry from doing international trade, I still felt like, man, I'm still not doing what I really want to be doing.
Wow.
And what I really want to be doing is something absolutely ridiculous, where I want to dress people up as dogs. And they don't mind. They don't mind. So that's, and I guess we were dropped in from another planet to spread the ridiculous word around here.
Absolutely. And it's just amazing that something would come out of paper and transform into a live show. You created and manufactured your art. Anything left on your bucket list to do? And we touched upon this a little bit before, to do for this show.
Well, you know, it's because it's an ever evolving, you know, it's an evolution of fun. So because of that, it has to be always a new thing. So each show that we do is kind of like, not exactly, they're never the same. They're always an evolution of whatever's, you know, in the moment. And say my performers feel the same way about it. They feel that, you know, sometimes they want to be really slow. Sometimes they want to be really hidden. Sometimes they want to be spread out on the floor playing with giant paper balls. So It's kind of, I guess it's like the moment takes you there. The way my moment is taking me now to this thing, which is totally a living piece of sculpture that wants to show off and do its own thing. So it wants to consume the artist.
Tell me about Lily Hatchett. What is the most interesting part of your life?
Oh, you mean other than being dropped in from another planet? That's not very interesting. That's like old stuff. But I don't know. There's a lot of it. I'm blessed to be a product of an extremely original family. So when they start you off young, you don't have a prayer to become ordinary. Because it was like, it was not happening in my family. Everybody was extraordinary. And I was blessed with super kind, like really kind, smart, loving people that just everybody loved everybody. It was a beautiful thing.
You've been a good friend and love seeing your shows. How would one contact you to book your shows and see your art?
Well, people can always find me. If you watch some of my YouTube videos, every once in a while a phone number rolls by, but you
Yes,
can also just find me on Facebook or Instagram. So there's,
absolutely. And you have a website too. Can you
I
tell that
do,
for
I have
our
a
audience?
website, and it doesn't have too many links on it. It's kind of like, I need to put new stuff on it, but it's pretty nice. And there is a phone number there, so there's that. So how do you like this thing? Isn't it fun?
Very amazing. And we have about a few minutes left. Anything else you can tell me about your performances? What you have the floor.
You mean, well, what I'm gonna be starting doing next is, getting people involved in, telling me their stories while sitting and basking in this beautiful light. And, and so that's the short version.
And will that be on the performance arena or over digital
I think
media?
it can be both, because all the stuff that's on my YouTube channel is just shot live, so for performance. And then, I cut some of it, I didn't cut some of it. And that's, you know, it's all from, in each of live event is gonna be different, so that's what's going on.
I appreciate your time. And can you just tell our audience where to find your website?
LilyHatchett.com or Lily Hatchett at Facebook, Lily Hatchett at on Instagram, and I have a blog called the Indie Film and Art Reporter.com. Just all spelled out, Indie Film and Art Reporter.com. And to answer your question about where this is going next, I think we need to go the digital, route as well as live route. I just got another grant from the city of Fort Myers, so I'm really appreciative that they like what I do. So I'm going to be doing something in the city at some point soon. So
That's amazing. Congratulations on your grant. And I appreciate your time. You are very talented. This is amazing and unique. And our audience will definitely appreciate you coming on the show and talking a little bit about yourself. I appreciate your time, Lily. Thank you so much. And you have a great day.
my pleasure. Thank you very much.